The courtroom was tense from the beginning, as Representative Jasmine Crockett stepped up to deliver her statement in a highly publicized civil case. Her supporters filled the gallery, and media cameras clicked from every corner. Facing her across the bench was none other than Supreme Court Justice Amy Barrett, assigned in an unusual advisory review capacity as part of a federal arbitration panel. What was expected to be a routine procedural matter turned sharply confrontational within minutes. When Crockett began outlining her case, citing multiple legal precedents and constitutional interpretations, Barrett interrupted. In a dry, almost sarcastic tone, she said, "I assume you understand the difference between political soundbites and actual constitutional law." The courtroom fell silent. Some smirked. Crockett, visibly taken aback, but composed, responded calmly, "I'm well aware, Your Honor. That's why I'm standing here with a case grounded in both." The exchange caught the attention of the press instantly. Barrett's comments seemed less judicial and more personal, and Crockett's calm but defiant posture added fuel to the already polarized public opinion. As Crockett continued, she emphasized her law degree, her years of legal practice, and her current role as a legislator actively engaged in legal reform. However, Barrett raised an eyebrow and asked, "Is it reform, or is it spectacle?" Words echoed across the room. Crockett leaned into the mic and said, "If fighting for rights you've never had to question feels like a spectacle, maybe that says more about the system than it does about me." A few audible gasps spread through the gallery. It was no longer just a hearing, it was a battle of ideologies, generations. Reporters were already typing headlines before the recess was called. Outside the courtroom, commentators, from both ends of the spectrum, picked sides. Some applauded Barrett's tough stance, saying it exposed political posturing. Others slammed her for condescension, claiming her tone dismissed years of Crockett's real legal and legislative work. Meanwhile, Crockett returned after the recess with fresh documents and a sharpened argument. She laid out a timeline of actions by federal agencies that allegedly violated civil procedures, linking them directly to policy shifts challenged in her suit. Barrett listened silently this time, but her expression was skeptical. As Crockett concluded her presentation, she requested the court's full review of her claims. Barrett leaned forward and asked, "Do you understand what a frivolous filing could mean for your career?" The message was clear and chilling. That remark became the flashpoint. Legal analysts flooded news panels that evening, arguing over judicial ethics, professional decorum, the implications of a Supreme Court justice seemingly threatening an elected official. Crockett, however, remained poised in interviews, choosing not to directly criticize Barrett. "I stand by my arguments," she told one network. "I believe in using every legal channel available to fight for the people I represent." Still, inside sources hinted that her legal team was shaken by Barrett's words. The implications of having a Supreme Court justice suggest reputational consequences wasn't something to ignore. Crockett's allies in Congress began publicly voicing support, framing the incident as an example of systemic power imbalance. "This wasn't just about a lawsuit," one colleague tweeted. "It was about putting someone in their place." By the following week, the heat had escalated, beyond what either side may have expected. The courtroom drama had gone viral. Clips of Barrett's mocking tone circulating on social media alongside Crockett's defiant responses. A rising chorus of law professors, civil rights attorneys, and judicial experts began weighing in. Some questioned Barrett's impartiality, citing her tone as indicative of bias. A few even called for a formal review of her conduct. Meanwhile, Crockett's legal filings underwent deeper scrutiny. Though initially robust, it became clear that her case faced major procedural hurdles. Her team quietly began reevaluating their strategy. They were no longer just fighting in court, they were managing a national media firestorm that could either elevate or derail Crockett's political future, depending on the next move. Then came the surprising twist. Crockett's office released a formal statement announcing the withdrawal of the lawsuit. The statement cited ongoing legal barriers and the evolving nature of the issue as the reasons for stepping back. However, insiders told a different story. Crockett's legal team feared that Barrett's public remarks if allowed to stand unchallenged, would skew further judicial consideration and possibly endanger future legal strategies. Still, Crockett didn't leave quietly. She held a press conference reiterating the importance of challenging injustice even when the system pushes back. "Sometimes the courtroom isn't the only battlefield," she said. "Sometimes it's the court of public opinion that reveals the real dynamics of power." Her statement resonated widely, especially among younger voters and progressive activists. Judge Barrett, for her part, issued no comment. The silence only added to the controversy. Meanwhile, petitions began circulating, demanding an investigation into her conduct. Though legal experts admitted it was unlikely to lead to formal discipline, the public pressure was mounting. Editorials appeared in major newspapers asking if judicial impartiality was still possible in such a polarized era. The incident triggered broader conversations about the intersection of politics, race, gender, and the judiciary. Crockett, an outspoken black congresswoman, had clearly struck a nerve both in her courage and in the backlash it provoked. And Barrett, known for her composed demeanor, had shown a rare flash of direct confrontation that many found telling. The ripple effects continued for weeks. Crockett was invited onto major news networks, podcasts, and political panels. She used the spotlight to highlight other issues she believed had been overshadowed by the lawsuit, such as voter suppression, education inequality, and policing reform. Her platform grew, as did her base. The lawsuit had been dropped, but the clash had amplified her voice. Meanwhile, Barrett retreated back into her usual role, keeping a low profile. But legal scholars continued citing the exchange as a textbook case in judicial overreach versus legislative courage. The ethics of what had occurred, assigning the transcript of the exchange as classroom reading. The courtroom had become a classroom for the nation. Months later, Crockett published an op-ed titled "Credentials, Courage, and the Cost of Speaking Up." In it, she reflected on the moment Barrett dismissed her background and the internal struggles she faced in choosing to walk away from the case. "Dropping the lawsuit wasn't defeat. It was a redirection," she wrote. "You can't win in a rigged game, but you can show people what the game looks like." The piece went viral, further cementing her as a fearless voice for accountability. Barrett never responded, nor did the court ever officially acknowledge the controversy. But in silence, the message was clear. The system would carry on as it always had, but now more people were watching. Looking back, the moment was more than just a courtroom drama. It symbolized something deeper, the clash between traditional power and rising voices demanding change. Judge Amy Barrett's mockery may have been meant to silence or intimidate, but it ended up sparking a wider reckoning. Jasmine Crockett walked into that room, prepared to argue a case, and though she withdrew it, she walked out having exposed an imbalance larger than any ruling. The courtroom was no longer just a place of lit, was a stage where reputations, values, and ideologies collided. And in that collision, a new kind of leadership emerged, not from a bench, but from the resilience to keep speaking when you're told to sit down.